What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Headbangers Sports. My name is Bobby O'Neill, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of the most important and least discussed topics for all pitchers. So over the past couple of years, I have been compiling a laundry list of exercises athletes are supposed to be doing on a daily basis, different mechanical cues, ways to control different pitch grips, and how to design and create various profiles. And it really is a lot of important stuff that goes into each and every one of those topics. However, over these past couple months, I've started realizing that one of the least addressed topics for all pitchers at all levels is the mental side to preparing yourself for a game. Now, I know right out of the gate, it's like, are we really going to talk about the mental side of the game right now? Yes, it is so important and not enough people are talking about it. So let me give you 3 ways that we can bulletproof your mental approach to pitching. That way we can maximize the things that we do well and we can start learning how to avoid the big inning. By the way, everything I'll be discussing today is coming from this book. First, we need to examine our overall preparation leading up to the game. Now, I know that I said this was going to be a mental talk, but let me just clarify. If we aren't physically prepared, it doesn't matter how mentally focused we are, we're probably not going to perform. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So one of the main points that I like to drive home to each and every one of my athletes is 90% of what you're going to be doing to prepare for your outing actually takes place off the field when your coaches aren't sitting there holding your hand. Nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise, and drills typically all take place while you're at home. So if you put a lot of work in at practice and you feel like you're prepared, but then you get out into that game and you do terrible, it's very important that you identify whether or not your sleep habits or workout habits are conducive with having a successful approach. So this is slightly off topic, but somewhat related. If you are making excuses for why you didn't perform well, and those excuses sound something like, hey, the ball was a little slippery, or my teammate didn't back me up, or the umpire was making bad calls, you got a problem. But if your excuses involve you like not getting enough sleep the night before and not working out hard, or maybe you didn't feel conditioned into those later innings, that's something you can control and you can learn from so that in future outings, you've prepared yourself adequately to perform at your peak best. So now that we've talked about the physical aspects of having a good mental approach, let's dive into the difference between rational and emotional. One of my favorite quotes from this book is this: "Nobody cares about your feelings, bro. We care about your actions." Even though I consider myself to be a very empathetic individual, I think it's super important what the book is trying to convey here. Transitioning from an emotional state of mind to a rational state of mind is going to be the determining factor on whether or not an athlete is able to make adjustments, avoid a big inning, or successfully execute one pitch at a time. We'll get into that in a second. The term rational has a very positive connotation for pitchers because it helps us control what we can control, focus on the things that are inside of our control, and it teaches us to block out the things that are outside of our control. When we react emotionally, we usually lead to a snowball effect that turns one negative mistake into another negative mistake, and they all compound on each other, and it leads to a disaster or a big inning that we weren't even able to control because we didn't even realize it was taking place until it was too late. So by training our brains to think exclusively rational, it'll help us avoid the big inning and it'll help us stay laser focused on the task at hand. That brings me to my final point. We need to learn how to reduce the game from all these different things that we could be focused on to simply focusing on the next pitch. Once we learn how to reduce the game of baseball down to one pitch, what we're doing is we're essentially training ourselves to execute the next pitch and not let anything else distract us from that task at hand. This is a lot easier said than done, but if we can train our brains to stay that laser focused and we can buy into that process, what's going to happen is we'll start compressing our thought process to be more laser focused, which is going to help us avoid some of those intrusive thoughts of like past poor performances. And this alone will help us have a more goal-oriented approach to the way that we throw, where instead of worrying about some of the metrics that don't necessarily matter, we'll be able to stay focused on the things that we can control, like how many pitches per game that we executed to our standard, rather than finding our identity on something like our ERA, where maybe someone else may have been partially responsible for that, like an umpire or a teammate who made a poor judgment call, or a fan who screamed out something funny that made us lose our focus for a split second. By solely focusing on the next pitch, that's going to help us develop a unwavering discipline for a solid mental approach, and this is going to help redefine us as athletes and is going to help boost us to that next level. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you, this stuff is way easier said than done, and it looks way better on paper than it does in the game. So make sure if this is something that you struggle with, where you lack mental discipline or you don't feel mentally fatigued after a game and you only feel physically fatigued, make sure you get yourself a copy of one of these and really start going through it. I've seen so much success from the guys that I work with who are currently reading through this and digesting this stuff on a daily basis. You can find this on Amazon, you can get it wherever you want, but what I highly recommend for you is journal while you're going through this book. It'll help you retain the information better and help you figure out what what action steps you can be taking to have a more disciplined mental focus. Thanks for sticking around, guys. I appreciate you watching this episode. Like always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Also, if you have read the book before, let me know what chapter you liked the most. My name's Bobby O'Neill. I'm the pitching guy here with Headbangers Sports. You can follow me at Bobby O'Neill 37. Take care. God bless.